Hey Lionheart, we are back. Robyn-Ann here with Mind, Style, and Money for virtuous women who know they are made for more. Listen, have you ever been in a season where you think you're waiting on new revelation from God and God's like, if you don't go back to the last breakthrough, I'm the same God. I am the same God. Please apply the same principles that we uncovered there, right? So that's been me. I know in my intro vid, I talked about how, really shifting now again, feeling God ask me, invite me out of corporate America into fully focusing on home and the business that can allow for that freedom to really be discipled by Him and then disciple my little ones and, those women that He is sending. It's been a bit of a resistance of how will I be able to break through, right? And he really had to take me back to, I think, one of the first times I realized I had a really horrible money mindset and limiting beliefs that were keeping me back. So I remember sitting in my apartment bedroom. This was back in Gainesville. I went to UF, shout out Gators, and I was looking through the window, really probably half crying because I was really trying to figure out what to do because I was about to be evicted. And then I was making $9 an hour. So even though I felt like I did all the right things, right? Got the good grades, went to college, got the degree, all I was able to come out and find was a job that I could barely make ends meet, right? And so I was like, God, this doesn't match, especially because I was in that city. I stayed behind because I knew He asked me to help disciple college age women, right? So I'm like, God, I could have gone on to other cities which could offer more or to higher level education, and definitely heard this clearly because I love Gainesville now, but I did not like it then, right? I was like, it was a small town and I was ready to get up out of there. So I remember crying when He told me to stay. But anyway, I'm here reflecting because I'm discipling women and I'm, here trying to be a spiritual example. But then it's like, God, how can I be a practical example when I can't even pay my bills, right? Especially because I was rooming with some of them and they knew I was behind on rent. Like it was some of the things that you're just like, how is this a good testimony, God? And in the midst of sitting on that bed that day, kind of wrestling with Him, I remember a tow truck coming into the community, but I thought nothing of it until I realized that it was there to tow my car, which was sitting there because the brakes had gone out and I couldn't afford to fix it. And it's one of those things after sitting there for too long, they call for it to get towed. I lost so many good CDs that day, y'all, because I was too ashamed to even go out and claim anything. But anyways, I remember coming out of that where I was like, okay, God, the fruit is not matching the faith, right? And going into some deep prayer and fasting is when I feel like He taught me these 3 shifts. It kind of unraveled over a few weeks, but things turned around rapidly for me. And so I don't want you, whatever situation you think you're in, to put yourself in a box, put God in a box on what's possible. A lot of times we are the ones really holding ourselves back from breaking free from broke or breaking free from burnout, because God's ways are higher. He's always about, a better way, an elevated, strategy on what works, an easy yoke, a lighter burden. So the moment I think we can open our minds to saying, okay, God, I know there is a solution here that you are ready to reveal to me, man, and we believe that with conviction. Woo! So for me, one of the first things was He showed me that the limitation I thought I had, which was, I felt like I had a degree. It was psychology with a business minor that wasn't powerful enough. So because of that, I thought I'm never going to, you have to watch words like that. I never will, or I can't. If you're using a lot of that language, those are signs that there are some limited beliefs that God wants to break through. But I thought, okay, I'm never going to be able to get, a crazy income until I decide to either go back to college, which I was over, but society. And so I was like, so that God, I'm kind of stuck at this income. Like, I need to be free to go back to school instead of what you've asked me to do, right? Like, talk back to God because your strategy is better. Anyways, and so he showed me that limitation that I thought I had of really not having much to focus on except the job I did have, which was an IT position. I got really based on just my personality. Uh, that that was enough. He was like, that limitation you think is a limitation is actually your liberation. You are now free then to focus on whatever is in your hand. Like, Elijah said to the woman who said, well, my husband died and they're about to take my sons and we don't have anything. And when Elijah asked her, what do you have? She's like, I don't have anything except a bottle of oil at home. For those of you who know the story, that went on to pay off all her bills and her debts. So I think for us it's similar, where that limitation or that little thing you think you have is your liberation and the freedom to actually focus on what is in your hand now. That means that's where God wants to move. That's where he's ready to work. That's where he has no objections about performing a miracle right there. If you will appreciate it, identify it, align it with what he's asked you to do, because your abundance is going to be sourced from that obedience, right? So for me, it was being present. I was so dissatisfied with that $9 per hour job that I really was always daydreaming. I wasn't giving my best. And so I was like, okay, God, here we go. We're going to be present. And really, that led to just so much more creativity and problem solving that I was eventually seen as a leader, in that role. And so then I was one of the ones who got certified in that position, which leads me to point number 2. Your limitation is your license. That thing can be the very expertise, that takes you far, that becomes more than enough, that becomes what people and others see you as having high value in, even if it's one thing. If you take it deep enough, that can be the thing you get licensed in. That can be the thing that others become, just really become aware of, seeing you as that person of value there. And you can really impact and influence so many if you take it seriously. Because obviously, if you don't, then it continues to be that little thing. But to whom much, not to whom much is given. I sometimes confuse that verse with, if we're faithful with little, right, then he will give us more. He will give us more. And so be really focused with that thing. So be free to focus on it, and then take it deeper. Like, really take it seriously. Become the leader and the expert in that. From that certification, that's where I then found out that certification was in demand nationwide, y'all. Nationwide. So the same desk job that was keeping me, with this minimal hourly income, a person who saw the execution and the effort I put into my role, now that I was being more present, right, being more pro with it. She was like, you could do consulting for this. And I was like, what do you mean, right? Because I thought consulting is what people do after they've done something for like 30 years, right? You're the one. You're the master, the Yoda in that thing. She was like, no, you learn really quickly and you're really good at offering solutions. You definitely should do this. And so, guys, and I've been saying 90 per hour, but I just went back and looked at that first offer. It was $95 an hour. I don't want to put people's business out there, but yeah, working for that Texas hospital. And I remember being like, what? And that's how it wasn't even me. I didn't even know to ask for that. The recruiter who called me, thank God he was the first one who called me. He was like, no, this is what would be standard for what you bring to the table. And I was like, for what I bring to the table? Because the recruiters after that were trying to they could tell I was inexperienced in the consulting world. So they were like, oh no, max you want to do like 50 an hour, 60 an hour. And so, man, thank God for favor, right? But I remember my mom thought it was a scam because it was such a big jump. but I knew what I was praying for. And so you really have to know what you're praying for and be very clear, because I knew I had made a decision and made a commitment to God that, God, I believe that you did not set me up to fail by asking me to stay here in this city. You have plans to prosper me, to give me a hope and a future. And so the third mindset shift that exposes that your limitation really is limitless. The thing that you think is an obstacle is a limitless opportunity. You can take it so far. You can take it to the ends of the earth, just becoming a person of value in that one area. And so that, obviously, that those mindset shifts, your limitation is your liberation, your limitation is your license, and it is limitless. Those mindset shifts, that's just one, the initial example of how it played out in that season. But I have seen it apply to so many different levels that I needed to break through time and time again. And so, just to encourage someone, that's the journey we're going to go on here, is really removing those blocks, because God is ready to give us more. All right. Someone's knocking at my door. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but probably one of my daughters. But let's roar. We will talk more next week.